Greetings, and welcome back to the MCOC Encyclopedia. Today, we'll be continuing our journey into Act 6, covering all of the easiest paths. If multiple paths are an option in a quest, I will cover them all. Remember that these are just what I found easier, and your roster and experiences may vary. So let's dive in. Act 6, Chapter 3, Quest Number 1, The World of Today. The champion has fallen, and now on to 6.3. For some, this will be a sharp step up from 6.2, and for others, this won't feel as different. It really depends on the champions you have in your roster. 6.3 and beyond require more and more niche champions. Don't just throw yourself at a quest if you don't have the right options. Build out your roster, then smash it. There is no global in this quest. Instead, each path has 2 nodes to deal with along the whole thing, as well as a local node on each champion. Let's have a look at what we are dealing with. From left to right, we have Delirium and Dismay, Footloose and No Retreat, Focused Nullify Regen and Mesmerize, Biohazard and Clapback, Can't Stop Won't Stop and Running on Fumes, and finally Oscillate and Immunity Bleed. Right off the bat, Footloose and No Retreat is an awful combination, Mesmerize is a hateful node, and Can't Stop Won't Stop is very niche. So that rules out half our paths straight away. The 3 paths we have left, though, are actually all viable options, if you have the right counters. For Delirium and Dismay, you must be able to hold a combo. If you find yourself getting hit often, you will degen a lot here. If you get to, say, a 30 combo and then get hit, you'll be ticking down for 300 per tick, and it doesn't go away. 10 times the lost combo. For Delirium, any robot or psychic shielding champion is fully immune to this node, meaning you will only have to hold your combo and you'll be fine. If you are comfortable with reverse controls, you can just play like that for the whole path, but that is up to you. Parry-heavy champions can also work, but remember to dex in reverse. We have a few defenders and local nodes to watch out for. First up is Magic and her limbo damage, as she will have increased attack from the node, so try and end this fight quickly. Loki has Mighty Charge, but he's a fairly simple defender. The Hood has Mesmerize, only hit him when he is stunned and you'll be fine, as he can't evade when stunned. Symbiote Supreme has Redoubled Determination, or Redet for short. This increases his attack and power rate for each debuff on him. And finally Scarlet Witch has Spite, so try to avoid getting buffs on you, though she may place them on you automatically. Not much we can do here, so try and bait her specials where you can. Path option number 2 is Biohazard and Clapback. Don't inflict poison, shock, bleed, incinerate or plasma debuffs, and you can completely ignore Clapback. We do have a few cheesy options, but we will get to those after looking at Biohazard. Speaking of which, Biohazard is the node that 6.1.2 Sentinel Miniboss had. Hit them directly and have a chance to be bled, hit their block and have a high chance to be poisoned. However, some champions benefit from these debuffs. Ghost and Omega Red are the top 2 options in my opinion. Ghost's phase will turn all damaging debuffs into massive furies and silly damage, and Omega Red will trigger his aura when bled. The node here means you can keep it going pretty much all the time. Shruggers like Kingpin can work just fine, but any bleed immune champion can do this node, just don't hit the block. Any bleed and poison immune champion can completely ignore this node. In terms of local nodes, Ghost has 300% cornered, meaning she'll gain mega power if she has any damaging debuffs on her. This isn't as much of an issue as it could be, as she'll probably just phase most of them off. Something to consider. Green Goblin has 5% masochism. See my 524 video for full masochism advice. And finally, Mysterio will have slightly increased power gain. Annoying, but then Mysterio always is. Maybe we'll do a defender video on him at some point. For our 2 cheesy options, we have Black Widow Clairvoyant in Bleed Stance, and Nebula, as they can really take advantage of Clapback. They are both fully bleed immune as well, so we don't have to worry about Biohazard, and Nebula is double immune, so you can hit their block without worrying as well. When either of these champions inflicts their debuffs, Clapback will put a duplicate on you. For Black Widow Clairvoyant, this means she'll be bled, but when she's immune to a debuff, she'll gain a small burst of power and some of her Clairvoyance charges. Just spam heavy attacks and cycle 20 charged special 3s for big damage. Careful versus Ghost and her mega power gain. For Nebula, being shocked gives you shock charges, so you can just get one charge by holding block, and then just sort of parry them to death, placing shocks on both of you. Again, careful versus Ghost. Our final option is the far right path, Oscillate and Bleed Immunity. Bleed Immunity might not seem like much, and versus Cable it can actually help you avoid issues, but this will be annoying for reasons we'll discover later on. Oscillate just means the defender will switch between being very aggressive with increased attack, and very defensive with increased armor and crit resistance. This is the same node we saw on the 611 Sabretooth boss. This is more of a node to play around rather than directly counter though. The problems on this path come from the defenders and the local nodes. Colossus is a warm-up fight, but he will place a Power Lock, Heal Block and Fate Seal on you at the start of the fight for 20 seconds. If you place any of these on him throughout the fight, he will also place a copy on you for 10 seconds. Nothing major here, as these are fairly rare debuffs and you don't need to apply them. Cable has 15% buffet. If you trigger a buff, he will heal nearly 30,000 health, and he can do this every 7 seconds. You will need some good damage or heal mitigation to get through this fight. Archangel isn't much of a problem, but then we have Void. A tricky defender at base, but he also has long distance relationship. This is the node that was the global in 613. You gain weakness debuffs when you are close to the opponent, and they fall off when you're far away. The problem is that Void will passively damage you for each debuff on you, regardless of source. Best to try and end this fight quickly and expect you will take some damage, or use champions that can shrug off debuffs, but don't use Kingpin. He supplies his own rage debuffs that Void will exploit. Not much to worry about on Venom, but Hulk Ragnarok's smash attacks have a 50% chance to be unblockable, so be careful of that. The last two fights on the path, however, require some consideration. First up we have Electro, and you'll need some way around his damage back. Ability accuracy reduction champions here are the best options, with Falcon and Crossbones being at the top, and high to max Namor can work up here as well. I would normally recommend Archangel, but given the bleed immunity from the node, we can't use him. Finally, we have Iceman, and this is Iceman with Bane. Play around Bane and bring a Cold Snap immune champion such as Colossus, Torque, Absorbing Man in his Magma form, Iceman himself, Corvus, Warlock, so on, and you should be fine. And if this video is helping you at all, please choose a path for that like button. Now we have the boss, Medusa, and we also have a Black Bolt Miniboss to deal with. Black Bolt isn't the hardest defender, but we have a few nodes to deal with. Firstly, Life Cycle. This is the same as we saw in 621. You will need to KO them when the shield is down, or they will regenerate to 10%. We also have a new node, Lionheart, to deal with. If you try and reduce Black Bolt's healing with debuffs, you will instead degen, and they will gain a massive regeneration boost if they are regenerating. Don't use champions that have the ability to reduce regeneration, normally through petrifies, and this will be fine. Finally, we have 20% Limber and Aggression Regeneration. Limber we have seen many times before and can be played around, and Aggression Regeneration won't be a problem as long as you keep hitting him. Be careful with it though, as it can really stack up if left alone. Right, the boss, Medusa. We have a few nodes here that are less impactful, and then we'll get on to the big ones. 5% buffet is annoying, but she won't regenerate that much. Just removes your buffs, and she'll gain a few thousand health back. If you hit her, she has a chance to gain Furies. They aren't very big Furies, but this will make counting her personal Furies much more annoying, as in the display they stack over the top of each other. When Medusa is at 3 personal Furies, she will auto-block you, but now it is hard to see what is personal and what is node. When she has 4 Furies, is that 2 and 2, 1 and 3, or 3 and 1? Are you about to get auto-blocked? You don't know. For the final smaller node, we have Explosive Personality. Hit her block, she gains an armor up buff. When she gets to 5, they're all removed, and you lose 25% of your max health. Don't hit a block, and you'll be fine. Watch out for her auto block, as this does count. So now for the big one. Do you bleed? Medusa can only take damage from bleeds. Nothing else. Crits, non-crits, other damaging effects, other red damage and so on do not work. It has to be bleeds, and bleeds alone. Don't try and be clever thinking you've got something that'll get around it. It has to be bleeds. To help with this though, she does have bleed vulnerability, which means Medusa will take 200% more damage from those bleeds. If you don't have a strong bleed immune champion, do not even consider this quest. You will not get through it. You might think that's unfair, but that's what it is, and we can't change it. So, what we need is a strong bleed immune champion, and we do have some good options. Symbiote Supreme is probably the best option, as he not only has some excellent bleed damage in his bleed stance, or after his special 3 when he triggers them all, but he can also deal with Medusa's armor and fury buffs. Longshot and the instant bleeds on his special 1 when he has Pure of Heart active also works for this fight, though it will be a bit longer. Outside of the Mystic class, any strong bleed champion can work. Nick Fury, Black Cat, Baron Zemo, OG Black Panther, Blade, Shield, Hitmonkey, Killmonger, Moleman, Archangel, Domino if you get a bit lucky, all 3 Wolverines, Venom, Venompool, and so on. Despite the node requiring a very specific piece of utility, there are plenty of options. So what does our ideal team look like? Well, it really depends on the path you choose. Let's start with the boss and work backwards. If we leave some slots open, we can fill them as needed for the path. Firstly, Medusa. Choose your best bleeder from the above list, or if you've got another one, use that. I'll be bringing Symbiote Supreme. Then if you aren't confident, you could bring a second option. Nick Fury, for example, would be great. Really, anyone can work for Black Bolt, so I won't be bringing a specific counter. Rewatch the 621 video if you need a refresher on life cycle. Now we have 3 or 4 slots for our team, depending on the path. For the Delirium path, we need robots or champions with psychic shielding. An example team of, say, Juggernaut, Professor X, Warlock, and Ultron would work great, but you can sub these out for anyone with those tags. For the Biohazard path, you can bring any bleed immune champion if you don't hit their block, or bleed and poison immune champion if you want to completely ignore the node. You could, for example, bring Luke Cage, Darkhawk, Man-Thing, and Terrax. Though they aren't the best champions and you will have slightly longer fights, they will work just fine. For some more ideal options, Ghost with Wasp and Omega Red with Sabretooth could fill our 4 remaining slots and cover every fight. Sabretooth could also be used versus the boss as a backup option and just spam his special 1, though he isn't the best. Wasp could work well for Black Bolt, just don't let her power stings from her special 2 convert to Petrifies or Lionheart will degen you. If you want to bring 2 Medusa options, or a Black Bolt option, I would drop Sabretooth for your new champion. And finally, for the Oscillate path, we need an Iceman, Electro, Void, and Cable counter. For Iceman, I'll bring Warlock, as he will also work well for Cable. For Falcon, I'll bring Electro, and Shang-Chi should cover Void just fine, leaving us with 2 slots if you wanted a second boss counter. Fairly soon after this video goes out, I will try and get up a short commentative video of me going through one of these paths with the exact team I suggest. I will, however, also do the first 2 fights of the other 2 paths so you can get an idea what they would look like. It'll be much more relaxed in this video, but should hopefully give more insight into what's going on. I will also answer people's questions from the comments, if they're popular, so please leave yours down below. As always, remember this is story content, so it won't be going anywhere anytime soon. If you get stuck here and find yourself spending lots of resources, stop and focus on something else. The monthly event quest and side quest are great places to pick up more materials, shards and units, as are battlegrounds and the arena. So that's it. Everything you need to know to clear 6.3.1. Up next, we'll be looking at whichever defender has been chosen from the poll, before we jump into 6.3.2. Let me know if there's anything else you'd like to see, and we can have a look at that. Keep an eye out for more announcements in the future so you can have your say on what we see that way as well. I also have a Discord server, so please join that. It's a great place to get specific advice, make suggestions for future video topics, and I'm usually around there to try and help as well. If you have any questions, please do leave them below, and do all the YouTube stuff. Thank you, and I will see you next time.